Howdy, y'all. I know it's been a while, so let's just check in and see how. Whoa. That's a lot. It should go without saying, but thank you guys. Whether you know me from my vintage story videos or the Helldivers video that I put out on a whim, I've received so much more from these videos than I ever expected. Know that if you've subscribed, commented, or even just watched a video of mine, it means the world to me. I want to try and upload more consistently, and the scope of my content might shift a bit, but I'll always do my best to put quality and your viewing experience first. Okay, enough sappy stuff. Now what y'all are here for. Play the... A lot's changed since my last video. For starters, Helldivers 2 has a whole lot of new stuff. They even have a Halo crossover tied in with their Xbox release, which I need not tell you I'm in love with. The weapons and armor will not be leaving my loadout. While I've been playing through the new bug missions, the cave systems remind me of a level toward the end of Halo 3, which has you fighting your way through a flood-infested Covenant ship, the ship's interior being completely unrecognizable, coated in a thick layer of flood tissue. Then I started thinking, how would Super Earth fare against a flood invasion? Minor spoiler here, it's not gonna be fun. But I'm not leaving it there. We're gonna go over all the information we have about the flood, about Super Earth, and then we'll see how they match up. One thing to keep in mind is that the flood is an extremely variable enemy. The way they fight depends heavily on the faction they're fighting against, and their numbers aren't fixed like a conventional force, so we'll be focusing more on technology and strategy than anything else. Most of you likely know what the Helldivers are made of, so let's talk about what they're up against. The Flood is a species of parasitic organisms that replicate by consuming other sentient life. Individual flood organisms vary greatly in shape, size, and ability, but the Flood's only desire is to consume and expand by any means necessary. It was this parasite that nearly consumed all life in the galaxy, bringing the Forerunners, a supremely advanced alien species, to their knees. It was then that the Forerunners activated the Halo Array, a super weapon capable of wiping out all sentient life in the galaxy, thereby starving the Flood. Now, the Helldivers are fighting enemies quite similar to the Flood already. The Terminids exhibit the same ability to consume biomass on an unprecedented scale and terraform the surrounding area, and the Illuminate are known to abduct and brainwash citizens of Super Earth, turning them into mindless zombies. But the biggest distinction is that the Flood grows stronger with every soldier Super Earth loses, assimilating them into their own ranks and taking on their knowledge. If a Helldiver is infected, the resulting combat form would be able to use the diver's weapons and even recall the input codes for the diver's stratagems, potentially calling in ordnance on their squad mates. And there's another glaring problem: energy shielding. In the Halo games, the only reason the Master Chief isn't doomed to the Flood is because his shielding prevents them from penetrating his armor. There's even a point in the book where an infection form catches him with his shields down, piercing his armor and nearly reaching his spinal cord before being destroyed by an energy pulse. Without dedicated energy shields like Spartans have, every Helldiver would need to use an external shield pack, which might come in short supply. Super Earth still has a lot going for it. Flood forms are very vulnerable to fire, and there is no shortage of that. Napalm strikes and barrages, flame turrets, and even handheld flame weapons. Energy weapons would also be quite effective. Flood infection forms are able to reanimate dead host bodies, and these measures would ensure total destruction. Exosuits would also likely see heavy use, since the Flood would be unable to penetrate the armor. Now, to understand how a fight against the Flood would actually go, you need to understand that Flood outbreaks follow three main stages. The one we've been operating in is the first, the Feral stage, where Flood intelligence is limited, and their primary goal is to further the infection by directly attacking any nearby sentient life. Toward the end of this stage, their strategy shifts, and they begin gathering biomass to combine into what's known as a grave mind. This being acts as the shared consciousness of the entire Flood species, turning them from mindless zombies into a hive intelligence capable of long-term planning and organizing. The creation of a grave mind moves us into the coordinated stage, where the Flood can begin acting as one cohesive superorganism, rather than many disjointed beings. It's at this critical mass that the Flood begins to completely transform the local ecosystem and release spores into the atmosphere that only further spread the infection, as well as using recycled materials to create entirely new Flood known as pure forms, as they function without a host body. At this point, Flood growth is exponential, and an entire planet can quickly be consumed. The third stage of an outbreak is the interstellar stage, when the Flood become capable of traveling to another star system. This is only dependent on whether the Flood can acquire the knowledge and means to get off-world. If the Flood reach the interstellar stage, it's game over for pretty much any opponent. Helldiver operations keep this risk pretty low, with super destroyers well out of range and Helldivers reaching the ground via their drop pods. However, the biggest risk would be during retrieval, when the Pelican is on the ground. There have been cases where infection forms stow away on dropships in order to infiltrate their home ship, but there aren't many places to hide on the Pelican. What's more likely is that the dropship would be swarmed upon landing, and the Flood would commandeer the ship and promptly crash it into the side of a super destroyer. Seriously, the Flood love crash landing. Maybe it has to do more with them yanking on the pilot's nervous system like a puppet on strings to control the thing, or they could just be really excited to find some new hosts. Super Earth's best chance at survival would be to prevent the Flood from creating a grave mine at all costs, a task much easier said than done, especially while refraining from saturation bombing the entire planet. Helldiver missions wouldn't contribute very much biomass if they went awry, since they only utilize smaller teams. But entire planetary operations are another story. Once the Flood begins converting civilian populations or garrisons in bulk, their numbers will skyrocket. Every lost colony becomes a new hive, and every delay only feeds the infection further. Super Earth doctrine is built around controlled sacrifice, losing squads, losing outposts, even losing whole planets when necessary. But against the Flood, those sacrifices don't weaken the enemy. Beating the Flood is about asset denial. The only viable strategy would be orbital bombardment, glassing the planet before the Flood can consolidate its resources. And if even one infection form survives, it can lie dormant, long after fears of the parasite have subsided, just to start the cycle all over again.
One single flood spore can destroy a species. Were it not for the Arbiter's Council, I would have glassed your entire planet.
And if a grave mine does emerge, and the Flood begin planet hopping, then Super Earth faces the same choice the Forerunners did: unleash galaxy-destroying weapons, or accept assimilation. So in short, how would Super Earth do? They could hold the line, but eventually, the Flood always wins unless you're willing to wipe the slate clean. The Forerunners had to fire the Halos. Super Earth doesn't have that kind of option. Against the Flood, there can never be a victory, only an uneasy silence, either from total assimilation or from total annihilation. That was a little dramatic, but that's my take. A whole lot of torching Flood until High Command decides it's time to create a few more Meridias. But like I always say, I want to hear your thoughts. Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you hate me? Let me know. I might not reply, but I'm always watching. Always. Hello, y'all. My loyal fans, who have been waiting for an upload for almost a year. I apologize. Video making is tough. For me, it requires a lot of momentum throughout the process, something I'm not very good at maintaining. But fear not. I've taken a renewed interest in video making, and I want things to be a little different. Expect me to go a little off my rocker. I want to transition away from the shameless trend grabbing my last two videos and start rambling about stuff I find truly interesting. I want to put out some real 3 a.m. gems, the type of stuff the algorithm blesses you with way past your bedtime, when you're already feeling existential about it all. So if that piques your interest, stick around. Like, subscribe, do whatever the hell you want. I'm not your dad. And that brings us to the end. For now, at least. See you around.